Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome everyone. Permanent Values 3, the Law of Requital. This presentation is the third presentation in this series. For further details, I've noted down three books here by Allama Pervez: What is Islam, The Human Self and Allah, The Life in the Hereafter, What Does the Quran Say? Now, over here, there are two quotes from the book, The Human Self and Allah, which I thought I would like to share with yourself. The first one is, the human self is received by every individual from Allah, but is received in an undeveloped form. The human self will be strengthened by whichever deed of man is according to the Quranic program. Whichever is contrary to this will result in weakening and degradation in it. This is called the law of requital. The effects of the deeds become apparent in this world as well as in the life after death. Therefore, the meaning of Iman in the human self means having Iman in Allah, Iman in His law of requital, and Iman in the life of the hereafter. Second quotation is, obedience of the divine laws is not like forced obedience of orders, which are imposed externally, but is obedience of the constraints imposed by the human self on itself. When a task is carried out under duress, never mind a self undergoing development, it becomes instead suppressed and stifled. By voluntary, wholehearted obedience of Allah's laws, called atat, the ability of the freedom to choose and intentions of the human self expands. So the point over here is that we have to keep it in mind that there is no compulsion in Deen. Whatever we are following in this life has to be based on the free volition of our own self. That should be our own free decision. No external compulsion should be on us. And that is how we benefit from our understanding of the law of requital. Now, this is, I've given the reference of pages of the English book, The Human Self and Allah. The presentation will include the following: introduction, meaning of the law of requital, steps in the law of requital, some related verses, understanding the law of requital to help understand the Quran, expanding the horizon of I, that is my own consciousness, training of the self through the law of requital. I've used the law of this acronym LOR as a substitute for the law of requital. Some verses, and then miscellaneous, and finally we'll conclude it. Introduction. In part 2, if we remember, that is the permanent values part 2, we shared some details about the human self, that is Nabs. At the basic level, an undeveloped human self has many limitations which need to be kept in mind when studying the system of Deen. If you remember, we went through a number of points where Quran says human beings are hasty and niggardly and those kind of traits which human beings have at a basic level. Recognition of the existence of a nafs which possesses choice and intent, has the potential to survive our physical death, forms the starting point of the study of the Quranic value system. Second is the laws in the universe. Everywhere there are laws which govern each and every aspect of human life. In order to get the maximum benefit from our life, we need to be aware of the system and its impact on our self. Functioning of the human body, the physical domain, we should understand that. The purpose of the human creation, we have discussed this aspect. Quranic guidance, we have concluded that we need this in order to fulfill the purpose of our own creation. If we remember, we had a number of presentations on the purpose of human creation. Without this guidance, we merely live at a basic stage with our life ending with physical death. I.e., our self does not acquire that developed state which can participate in the creative process of our life in the hereafter. And in this presentation, we will look at some aspects as part of the system of Deen as and when it is established. Now, here I have drawn a diagram which is called a causality diagram. That events, whatever they take place, these take us towards some kind of a conclusion. That is, there is a cause here, it becomes the effect. And a cause here becomes an effect. So previous causes become effects, and previous effects then become causes for the next effects. So at any point in time, we have a sum total of all what has happened in the past. And we observe it at an individual level as well as at a collective level. So if somebody has appeared at this point, then they have to study the previous one and become the part of the next train of events. So depending on where we are in these train of events, we can figure it out. The meaning of the law of requital. In this slide, I will go through a bit more detail on this particular verse, which we have gone through previously, 45:22. خلق الله السماوات والأرض بالحق ولتجزى كل نفس بما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون. This is translated as Allah created the heavens and the earth as al-haq, so that each nafs is recompensed for what it does and no zulm or injustice is done on anyone. The first part is Allah in the verse refers to all his divine attributes. So we have to keep it in mind that Allah over here, it is not Rabb or Rahman or Rahim or one of the attributes mentioned. It is Allah which encompasses all attributes, all his attributes which are mentioned in the Quran. The whole visible universe is referred to ensure that as human beings possessing choice and intent, we understand that it is for us. So important thing over here is that we should understand that whole of this creation, visible one, is for us. We give meaning to the universe. We need to keep this in front of us all the time. Then al-haq means something which produces positive, concrete results based on evidence. The system of Deen will create this evidence as a model for mankind. So important thing over here is that this haq has yet to manifest itself. It did manifest in the times of Rasool and his companion. If it has to manifest again, then we have to follow what is given in the Quran, because the verse is in the Quran and the Quran is explaining this verse right from beginning till end. So this system of Deen, we should keep it in mind. Now next is Adam given nafs and a physical entity. So Adam was given a nafs and a body, which has the attributes of choice and intent. And the universe provides such an environment in which this choice and intent can be manifested. So in order to find out this haq thing, we have to concentrate on our choice and intent, because it is human beings, because of their nafs, who are putting a meaning, giving a meaning to the universe. So all the creation around us is an evidence of that human beings are trying their best to create. Now they are creating outside the values of the Quran, as these choices will create effects. Hence, Adam was told that these consequences will affect both his inner and outer life. That is in relation to nafs, and outer in relation to his physical body and his physical world. He's here in the world for a limited time. That is, death is always at the back of his mind. He knows he's going to die. And his body is tied down by physical laws. This everyone knows, that our physical body is going to die, which will lead to his physical death. However, his nafs will not die, evidence within him. Now, this is an important statement here, that he thinks that he will die, but he doesn't recognize his own nafs. And the recognition of that nafs is, for that one has to come to the Quran. He needs to use this inbuilt accountability to his advantage and to benefit from the process of special creation for which he has the support of the forces of nature, i.e. Malaika. So we should keep in mind that in that verse 230, that is Surah Baqarah's verse 30, where Malaika raised some comments and said that this creation will create fasad and they will shed blood. So we should keep that in mind. Next is, then he is assured that this whole process is so watertight that nothing can escape it, and everyone is assured of justice based on evidence. So this is important for us, that who are following the Quran and trying to understand it, that the whole system is watertight. So it should provide us reassurance again and again that we are dealing with a very just system when we come to the Quran. And the guidance of Wahi is provided to help know the functioning of the system. So that is how we find out how the system functions, how precise it is, how refined it is. Its higher aim in relation to the factual existence of the life of the hereafter. He is assured that if he himself becomes just and desires a system like this, then this whole guidance of the Quran is placed within his convenient reach, and he could acquire a new life within himself through Iman and work towards the establishment of the system of Deen in the 24/7 presence of Allah. This is the reason that Allah created man and the universe to help him. That is, it has been created, aim has been given, means have been provided, he's got a nafs which can do it, and he has been given external guidance from the Quran. So law of requital should be viewed from that point of view, that what is in it for us. Now there are two aspects of this law of requital in our world. And first is application to this world, making sense of the man-made world, as I stated previously, delving deep into those matters which are not available to non-Quranic minds, as they do not have access to the LOR and its being haq. So here we have to understand that what we know about law of requital, others don't. So what difference this is making to the world around us? When human beings learn the law of cause and effect, they try to use it to their maximum advantage. They know about cause and effect. If particularly in the West, everyone knows about cause and effect, and they make use of it. And what do? They exploit those who are not fully aware of it or ignore it deliberately due to religious mindsets. So this is a huge limitation if we do not understand the law of requital. They then take measures to immerse this majority further into this ignorance and thus exploit them to the maximum. For example, whole democratic setup to elect the elite and powerful is to create an influence through the media to make people accept their point of view. Majority thinks that they are using their choices, whereas they are being subliminally guided into making those choices which the parties or individuals wish them to make. In any case, all their choices are guided by Iblis and Shaitan. And this is very interesting, some of the verses I have selected for that. Now, the second aspect is applying it to ourselves to develop it to a very high level of eminence and loftiness through which to become ready for the system of Deen. So if we apply law of requital in detail in a very refined form, then we achieve that eminence and loftiness within ourselves. That is, we understand it better and we know the world in which we are living much better. After having acquired Iman, understanding of the law of requital leads to a rapid increase in the understanding of the man-made world and its limitations and adverse effects on the world. Since it leads to the understanding of those parts of the human psyche which are not available to the modern psychology, hence it helps to acquire a very high level of understanding within ourselves. Modern psychology also says that whatever we do and think, it does affect our mind and our personality. But hereafter doesn't come into it. The permanent values do not come into it. Higher purpose of life doesn't come into it. So it has self-imposed limitations on it. One comes to this conclusion that without the Quranic guidance, there can never ever be a word without fear and grief. Now, this is important. If we remember in verse 38 of Surah Baqarah, the Quran says that guidance will come, and whoever follows the guidance, they will have no fear and grief. So fear and grief is inbuilt in the man-made system. Human differences and conflicts can never be eliminated, and the life of the hereafter, as explained by the Quran, can never be understood by mankind as a whole. So this is the point which we have to keep it in mind, and it will come to us before us in more detail. Steps in the sequence of the law of requital. What happens is that the first step is that we make an intention, desire, thought, idea, something comes in our mind. Then a process of converting this desire, intention into a deed or act of ours, we have to go through a process. The process of converting it into an act, deed, and then completing this action. So once we commit an act, then replacement of a deed by an effect is further impact on our outer environment. Brother Mumtaz had also pointed to this in one of his presentations. Now, the fourth is time of respite. As the law deals with the human self, hence the cumulative effects of our thinking and their impact on our consciousness, that is decision making. Though they commence immediately, they manifest after a while on our outer world. The reason is because it deals with human self, and the human self gradually starts becoming, because of the deeds, because of the thinking which precedes these deeds, it starts developing itself in that direction, whether going down or up, irrespective of that, it takes time. And that is why there is a time of respite between the time we commit a deed and showing off its cumulative effects in the outer world. During the time of respite, we may be able to recover from the ill effects if we realize the consequences of our wrong path and mend our path. This aspect will be covered under the value of warning. So there are verses in the Quran where Quran says, if I destroyed on one big act or deed, then there would be nothing left in the world. Now let us look at some of the verses. Now this is a verse from chapter 17, Bani Israel, and verse 64. And this is in relation to Shaitan. That is the human desires. What do they do? They lead to destruction those whom you can among them. So this is, Shaitan is being told, that is, we are being warned that it will lead you to destruction. And with your voice, make assaults on them with your cavalry and your infantry. Mutually share with them wealth and children and make promises to them. But Shaitan promises them nothing but deceit. So we can go through these verses and look at their roots as well. It's quite interesting that we can see that with your voice, that a Shaitan is being told that you can misguide human beings. That is, one set of human beings are misguiding other human beings. With your voice, which is our media, make assaults on them with your cavalry and your infantry. It could be metaphor as well as literally, bombing of other countries, causing conflicts. Mutually share with them wealth and children. We can see in a man-made world, the criteria for success is wealth and family and children, and particularly within children, boys. And make promises to them, that is false promises, which have nothing for the hereafter. So whole life is lived in this circle. And Shaitan promises nothing but deceit. So whoever thinks that this is the only life is mistaken. And this is where we have to look into it in more detail. And then this is what I've done is I have put 63rd verse after 64, just to make it in a slightly different context. Kala azhab faman tabi'aka minhum fa inna jahannama jazaukum jazaan mafura. That if you follow Shaitan over here, then Allah said, go your way. If any one of them follow you, that is Shaitan is told here, i.e. human beings, those who follow Shaitan or who themselves are Shaitan, verily hell will be the recompense of you, an ample recompense. That is, there will be enough to pay you back for the wrong you have been doing. And then the Quran makes an exception. Inna ibadi, my servants, Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Laisa laka alayhim sultan, since they will follow the light of the wahi, hence they will not be able to be, you won't be able to misguide them. Wa kafa bi rabbika wakila, and this here the Rabb attribute has appeared here. And because Allah will be their disposer of affairs, that is, they will be following the Quran and its values. So if we are fully aware of the law of requital and the consequences of our thoughts and deeds, then we don't fall into these traps. There are some other aspects of the law of requital. Kullu nafsin bima kasabat rahina. See, the verses all have nafs, and then is kasab, which is related to deeds, and we are what we do in this life. So every nafs will be held in pledge for its deeds. Then is fama agna anhum ma kanu yaksibun. If we are following the wrong path, then whatever successes we had in this life, they will be of no consequences. Whole life will be wasted. And we see that life being wasted all around us. And this will be one of our challenges, that we will see people wasting their life when we look at them through the Quranic lens. لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ كُلَّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. Now over here, first is the same as noted in 45:22, but second one is Inna Allah Sariul Hisab, that Allah is very quick in taking the account. That is, since it is inbuilt in us, so the moment I do a wrong deed or a good deed, it has an impact on myself. And the point we should remember is that the system of Deen should also be very efficient in accountability. That is, first we educate and teach people, and then ensure them that accountability is is very important. And the system should be built in a way so that people in the first place don't do wrong. Bala man kasaba sayyatan wa ahtat bihi khatiyat. Faulaika sabun nare hum fiha khalidun. Exactly the same, those who seek gain and evil and are girt around by their wrong deeds, that those people who are encompassed by what they do, that is, they literally become wrong, evil. Faulaika sabun nare, it is as if they are owning that fire. Sabun nar is normally translated, they are companions of the fire, but it's worth looking at this root as well again, and you will see that ownership also comes into it. That is what they become. Hum fiya khalidun, because since they become like that, so they will stay like that. Tilka ummatun qad khalat laha ma kasabat walakum ma kasabtum wala tusaluna amma kanu ya'malun. Now this verse has come twice. If we look into Surah Baqarah, you will see that we will see that this in relation to the messengers, various messengers of Allah. And the Quran over here has made our life very, very simple, that do not get involved in what others did. Look at what you are doing. And that is what part of our law of requital is, that I should be all the time aware what exactly my thoughts are and what I am doing. Is it in line with the permanent values or not? And not to waste time on useless vain talk. And Quran over says, Wala tusaluna makanu ya'lamun. You will never be asked what others did, because what others did will never impact on myself. So that is the important part of the law of requital. Then is ma sabakum mim musibatin fabima kasabat aydikum wa yafu an kasirin. I thought this is a very good verse in terms of providing that if we make certain mistakes, there is a protection in that. First is that whatever we do, whatever we have sent forward, the trouble comes from that direction. So whatever trouble happens to you is because of the deeds your hands have wrought. If you remember Surah Hashr's verse, Waltanzur nafsum ma qaddamat legat. But over here, Quran says, Yafu an kasirin, that many of your deeds, you will see the minor ones especially, you get protection from them. So if you have committed a mistake, don't do it again, and then replace it with good deeds. وَبَدَالَهُمْ سَيِّئَاتُ مَا كَسَبُوا وَحَاقَ بِهِمْ مَا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. I selected this verse from this word, يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ, because that these deeds, whatever we do at some point after the time of respite is over, will face us. And then these, what they do is they encompass us, they encircle us. And this encirclement is definite, because what happens is that the people take it light. They take it as a joke. I posted a video clip by Leslie Hazelton. And in that, if we see that she is taking it very lightly, that whole thing is presented in a very light mood, and there is a lot of laughing and humor in it. And one of the things we may notice that there is not mention of anywhere, in fact, I have watched some of her other videos, no mention of the law of requital, accountability, higher purpose of life, hereafter. So people miss out. If we are looking at the Quran academically, you will see that people will miss out the obvious. So it is important that we should not take it lightly. Law of requital is a serious thing, and we need to understand it and become extremely aware of it and tell others as well, because that is how our self becomes strengthened. وَهُوَ اللَّهُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ يَعْلَمُ سِرَّكُمْ وَجَهْرَكُمْ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تَكْسِبُونَ. And He is Allah in the heavens and on earth. He knows what you hide and what you reveal, and He knows what you are. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تَكْسِبُونَ. So over here, it's again the same. If we refer back to the same verse, خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, same wording is used here. Allahu fi samawati wa fil ard. That Allah is everywhere and He knows everything. So when we have a system of Deen, we will have to reflect some of these attributes in that. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Over here, beautifully, Quran has linked what we do together, we become friends together. So this is very much the state of Mu'mineen as well, that if we do a lot of good deeds together, then our hearts will strengthen. تَعْصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. So Zalimin, in unjust, they get together and they become friends of each other. And we can see that all across the world. Then is Zahar al Fasado fil Barre wal Bahre bima kasabat adil nase le yuzikahum badal lazi amilu la'allahum yarji'un. So over here we can see that the word in 2021, in fact, this word is there for a long time now, that fasad has appeared in the word in land and sea because of what human hands have done. So law of requital, it is human hands which do it. And there's a plenty of evidence. There's always evidence all around us. So we need to understand that using the law of requital, that wherever there's a problem, there is a human hand behind it. And so that they taste from what they are doing. And this serves as a warning so that people come back towards Allah and they try to see that why it is happening. And if people who are pursuing this agenda to create this problem, that there should be a people who should be there to stop it. Kalla bal rana ala qulubihim makanu yaksibun, by no means, but on their hearts is the stain of what they do. So whatever we do, that has an effect on our inner psyche. Over here, Quran says their hearts are rusted. They become rusted. They are stained. Kullallazina amanu yakfiru lillazina la yarjuna ayyamullah liyajzi qauman bima kanu yaksibun. So over here, Quran says that tell those who have accepted Iman that to overlook those who do not look forward to the days of Allah. So that means that there is a tussle here, that if we are those who are Aman, then we have to move away and understand the people who do not want the system of Deen. So this is the two aspects of the way people live and approach law of requital. And being Amanu means that we know the consequences of following the wrong path. And the Quran over says, "Lejazye ya qauman bima kanu yaksibun," and we should keep striving for the days of Allah, that is Ayyam Allah. And those who do not, it shouldn't worry us. We should stay away from them and look at them. Of course, we have to watch them. And at the same time, Allah says that because of their deeds, while we are proceeding towards the Ayyam Allah, they are moving away from that. And as a result, ultimately, once we acquire strength, then we'll be able to change the system. And over here, there is a great hope. Walau anna ahlal qura amanu wa attaqu. The Quran says if people had become amanu and attaqu, that is, they had avoided the pitfalls of life and accepted Iman, then what would have happened is that they would have got all the blessings of the universe. Walakin kazzabu fa akhasnahum bima kanu yaksibun. But if they do not do that, then they will be held to account for their misdeeds. And there is always a time, but law of requital doesn't spare anyone. Now, there are collective aspects of the law of requital. Afalam yasiru fil arde fayanzuru kaifa kana akibatul lazina min qablihim kanu aksara minhum wa ashadda quwwatan wa asaran fil arde fama agna anhum ma kanu yaksibun. Over here, Quran says that travel around the earth and see what was the end of those before them who did not follow, who did not take law of requital into account, and their own deeds then destroyed them. And they were more in numbers than these and superior in strength and in the traces which are left in the land. And we can see a lot of these signs in the earth. Archaeology have dug out a lot of these old cities which were destroyed. Yet all that they accomplished was of no profit to them. And of course, if we take hereafter into account, then they got nothing. Allazina yuzuna al-mu'minina wal-mu'minati bighayri ma iktasabu faqad ihtamalu buhtanan wa ithman mubina. I included this verse. I thought this is a sort of a reassurance for us that what Allah has said, that those who give pain to mu'minin and mu'minat, and if they haven't done anything wrong, and mu'minin or mu'minat are not going to do anything wrong because they stick to the values of Allah. And others will ridicule them and pass comments and even try to hurt them. So Quran says that we should stick to the law of requital, that ultimately give it time and these things will disappear gradually once the system is established. Now, let us look at some of the understanding which helps to understand the Quran itself. Now, by understanding the law of requital, we come to know about kafirin, mushrikeen, munafiqeen, jahilun, kazibin, religious clergy and their deeds, politicians, leaders of all kinds. So if we understand law of requital and keep it in mind, we can see all these categories which are mentioned in the Quran and what do they do. Second is we come to know the word and its issues very clearly. We know the causes and the consequences on which the word is based. So if we understand law of requital, we will understand both physical and non-physical side of it. We learn the fundamental default state of Adam as a creation. If we remember, we mentioned it in permanent values too. All weaknesses, for example, human beings are niggardly, competitive, unjust, follow on desires, dislike haqq, mix haqq and batil, they are contentious, they hide the truth, they are weak, they are accusing, continuously they are accusing. Whole media is doing day and night. Emotive and impulsive, they are prejudiced, they are revengeful, they follow forefathers, religiosity, they exploit others, hedonistic, takes the easy path, they look for shortcuts. Let's become rich very quickly. The whole system creates yatim and miskeen, does not forbid evil and promote good. Now, this is the quality Quran attribute of mu'mineen. They are quick to compromise and they give up quickly. We can find out many, many more. The Quranic light helps to recognize the darkness of the human psyche, including our own, and then presents the solution to remove this darkness. So this is important. Its understanding makes decision making easier as evidence becomes available quickly. Two categories, there are only two categories of people in the world, either those who follow Allah or those who follow their own desires. And this is very clearly demarcated in the Quran. It helps the mu'mineen to focus their attention on Sirat-e-Mustaqim, and the law of requital keeps them on it as they obtain evidence on a continuous basis about the man-made systems. So once we are on Sirat-e-Mustaqim and we have the tool of law of requital, we are continuously aware what is going on in the world and how do we deal with it. It prevents any distractions, very important. It prevents any distractions, and gradually those join the mu'mineen who are never distracted by the non-Quranic people and the system. Allah becomes their guide as stated in various verses of the Quran. These things will become clearer as we will go through more verses and we deal with other values. Now, next point is expanding the horizon of I through the law of requital. Because we become extra conscious of our own I as well as the world around us. Becoming aware of the existence of one's own I and its associated consciousness. We have to become more consciousness because now we are more aware of what we do in our life. Deciphering the complex connection between intellect, desires, emotions, memory, choice, intent, brain and its manifestations, and cognitive functioning, etc. Finding the higher purpose of life and the possibility of the existence of a life after physical death. This possibility becomes an inner reality as human self strengthens to acquire a higher eminence. Higher inner awakening comes, leading to further exploration of own world of consciousness. This is required for the establishment of Deen. Deen has to be conceived quite well before we establish it, and we have to have a very high conviction and need for it. And that law of requital and its understanding helps in that. Realization of the existence of other human beings possessing the same I and exactly the same self or nafs. This needs to become effortless presence in our consciousness, i.e. to be aware of it as we know my own I exists. For the development of own self's need for interaction with other human beings, and coming to develop this conviction that without this interaction, the self can never become deserving of the system of Deen. These are some of my thoughts on this and my understanding, and all of us can add to it. Now, there is a schematic. I thought I'll draw it just to illustrate what we have said so far. First is, this is the mankind, and they are following this path, and this is a path without wahi. And they are going along this. and then they are ready for departure. That is the time of death. And this path ends in physical death. And then further development not possible as these people do not meet the criteria of this stage, i.e. hereafter as defined by the Quran. They never thought about it because they don't, actually, if we look at their life, most of them don't want hereafter. And that is the issue between them and their own purpose of life. And average span of human physical existence on planet, let's say about 80 years. Out of their 80 years, really the prime time is between 30 to about 60, 65, that kind of a time. And then the decline starts. And now I have taken the example of one human being. It could be any one of us or all of us. And what it does is that he or she is looking for guidance in life. So what happens is that they're looking for guidance and they're not happy with this path. So what I've done is I put the arrow slightly higher, and there is a time between this time and up to this time. And then it goes slightly higher where they acquire further guidance. They study the Quran. They try to see that why the word is like that, the way they find it. They are not happy with this. Then I've changed the color slightly and said that they are, again, this is the period of time. There are years between them, depending on how much effort one is making. And then we go to the next stage, slightly higher. So a stage comes, then they take a steep rise. That is, their understanding starts multiplying. So all these stages are the ones which contribute to this stage where let's say we are on this stage, or we are trying to find out more details of it. And then they go to the still higher one. And then depending on what sort of what time we are about to leave this life, nafs experiences physical death. So kullu nafsin zaikatul maut, that is, we experience death, and then we go to the next life. Followers of Sirat-e-Mustaqim leave the physical life at a higher plane of existence, an eminent self meeting the minimum threshold level of the Quranic criteria. See, the paths followed are quite different from the paths who do not think that life ends with death. So these are totally different paths. And I thought that this will help to illustrate it slightly better. Now let us look at training own self through the law of requital. Apprising oneself with all aspects of its working in relation to human desires, emotions, sentiments, thoughts, intellect, reasoning, memory, our body, and physical law. So it's a very intense process, but it shouldn't be a painful process as long as we are aware of it. In our daily day-to-day living, if we concentrate on that, then we can figure it out. What I'm sharing with you is really for those, we all are already understanding it, but this is for the benefit of those who are newcomers, or if we are explaining to others. And since this video is going on YouTube, so it will help others to understand this process. They have to develop conviction, and conviction doesn't come in one day. Law of requital, one takes time to understand it and then apply it. Gradually becoming aware of own thinking process and analyzing it within the domain of the permanent values. Eye and brain connection needs to be comprehended in detail to be aware of the brain's thought process. This is important for us, that brain will always try to throw various desires and emotions on us. It will provoke us as well. So we have to be fully in control of that gradually. Obviously, it is not a one-day's job. One has to practice it over a period of time. And collectively, it helps to judge each other as well. And we should tell our children, our family, wife, husbands, everyone to guide us as well. If I made a mistake, they should guide me. They should tell me that here, I shouldn't have said this, what I said. So that is how we learn. So we shouldn't take it personal. Being aware of others and their thinking, remembering we live in a non-Quranic world where human beings under the influence of Iblis and Shaitan are all around us. But this is, one should keep it in mind. It looks a bit derogatory, but it is not. This is what Quran says, and this is before us as evidence everywhere. We ourselves once belonged to this category. I always remind myself that I belonged to this category previously when I was not on the Quranic path. This may appear harsh, but is a fact if we use the Quran. The Quran is our vaccine. So I thought in present day's environment, if we say it is a vaccine, it will help against the onslaught of Iblis and Shaitan, of those human beings who are appearing at a basic default level. So the world around us is created by these fellows, and we have to protect ourselves and then be able to do good and proceed towards the system of Deen. Continuous awareness of the existence of the law of requital increases our sense of responsibility in relation to those who are at the lower end in the world. We should keep in mind that over here, what is at stake is not only, of course, our own selves, but what is at stake is those who are left out right at the bottom of the ladder for no fault of theirs except that they are poor and weak. Their plight becomes a living reality for us, and we wish to remain focused on this so that we could get Allah's help within a short period of time. You should remember that verse in Surah Nisa where Allah says that Mu'mineen, that why don't you go and help those people in that particular village or town who are asking for Allah's help. Now, next point is, next title is LOR, that is Law of Requital leading to balanced outcome. Now, these are some verses which I've taken from Surah Yusuf. I thought these fit very well in our today's discussion. First is, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَنَّا لَيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَتَبَوَّأُ مِنْهَا حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ نَصِيبُ بِرَحْمَتِنَا مَن نَشَاءُ وَلَا نُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That over here, Quran has said that Hazrat Yusuf was established in the land. This is, if we remember, it is, if we read the previous verses, Hazrat Yusuf has come out of the prison and now he is with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh has given him the responsibility. And over here, Quran says, we established him in the earth so that he could carry out whatever he was planning to carry out within the light of Wahi. And see, the word used here are Shafa, Rahmat. Shafa'un wa rahmatul lil mu'minin. The Quran has said that Quran is for that. So over here, rahmat is mentioned, nasibu bi rahmatina man nasha'u, that Allah gives rahmat according to his law and his law of Mashiach. Wala nadiyu ajr al muhsinin, that whatever good we do as mu'minin, that never goes wasted. Now, this is a law as well. This is a permanent value. We will, inshallah, discuss it at some point. So this is important, and it gives us a strong assurance that whatever we are doing in this direction will bear fruit. Wal ajrul akhirati khairul lillazina amanu wa kanu yattaqun. Here the Quran has summed it up in the next verse, that what is coming in the hereafter, that is in this life as well. If we see, Hazrat Yusuf went through a very big trial and tribulation, and ultimately he got what he wanted, that is to solve the problems of the people. And khairul ladzina amanu, it is for amanu, those who have iman, and kanu yattaqun, and who avoid the pitfalls of life, and they become muttaqi. And then is Qala innama ashku batti wa husni illallahi wa alamu minallahi ma la ta'lamun. This is a verse I included a little later from Hazrat Yaqub. And Hazrat Yaqub was also a messenger of Allah. And he said it, that whatever I'm stating, I'm not, the people around him, his sons, his family, and others were not interested. But he said, I express my own feelings to Allah. That is, I share it with Allah because Allah is present all the time. I know something from Allah in the light of Wahi which others don't know. And this is exactly our position as well, that in the light of the Quran, we know things which others don't know. So we can't say, Alamu minallahi ma la ta'lamun. So law of requital does this, that in the light, through the use of law of requital, we become well informed. Ya baniya azhabu fatahassasu min Yusufa wa akhihi. This is in the same point to his family, to his sons, that regarding Yusuf and his Hazrat Yusuf and his brother. Wala tayasu min ruhillah, that never ever be hopeless about the help of Allah, about and not to give it up. Innahu la yasu min ruhillah illa al-qawmul kafirun. See, for mu'mineen to, this verse defines the kafirun, that they become hopeless. They give it up. And so we should never ever give it up if we think and we have accepted iman in Allah's wahi, then we should never ever give it up. And we should keep this in mind. Hazrat Yaqub was also a human being like all of us, and he went through a very hard time. So these two words explain it here. Batti wa husni. Batti is where these were manifesting outside. Husni is when one internalizes the whole grief. Now, second is that Rabbe qad atatani min al mulke wa lamtani min ta'wil al ahadith. Now, these are the words from the lips of Hazrat Yusuf, that, oh my Rabb, you have indeed bestowed on me some power and taught me interpretations of events. O you creator of the heavens and the earth, you are my protector in this world and in the hereafter. You take myself as one submitting to your will. That is, I should leave this world in that state of being a mu'min and a Muslim and unite me with Salihin. See the desire of that I should stay with the Salihin. So this, for example, this platform we are using to share Allah's message together. So this is a great message of hope here, that all the difficult times which Hazrat Yusuf went through, and finally he succeeded. And we should keep in mind that La Nadiyo Ajral Muhsinin, as was stated in an earlier verse. This is a great assurance for us that even if we give message to everyone, the Quran says that most of the human beings want to follow their desires. They will conform to the system of Deen. People will conform to any system where their benefits are attached. But it's a very difficult path to change our own inner self. And we should tolerate it, because Quran has said, La ikraha fit deen. And we should, our desires should be in line with the Quran. If our desires are outside the Quran and we say whole mankind will become one day mu'mineen, then we are not following the Quran. So we should accept that there will be people who will not accept it, but they will conform to the system. And there's a plenty of evidence in the Quran. وَمَا تَصَالُهُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So this is one of the signs that no reward. We don't ask reward for that. Quran is for everyone. We have benefited, we want others to benefit. We don't want misery in the world. We don't want yatim and miskin in the world. That is why we invite others. In huwa illa zikrul alamin. See the word zikr here. Zikrukum. So this is a message for all times. So if people today don't accept it, there will be people in the future who will accept it. Those who accept it, they should come together. Now, taking advantage of the law of requital, discovering new potential within oneself, manifestation of divine attributes, al-asma'ul husna. Once we come to that, we will see that how many potentials human beings have within themselves. Maximizing these potentials to their maximum. So we should not be satisfied with the minimum level. We should take it to its highest limits. Understanding the link between the human self and the physical body. So that is how we understand the law of requital. There is a cause and effect of dealing with our body. The law of requital is dealing with my inner self. Bringing desires and intellect within the fold of the guidance of Wahi. Gradually becoming highly aware of own thinking process and enabling the I to select thoughts and deeds which contribute to the self's development, thus optimizing own awareness in relation to others. So it is a process of optimizing our own thought process. So that is important. And it's a very much within our own control. But becoming aware of the brain's activity and making informed decisions at the level of the I using the permanent values at all times helps learn more other permanent values and their interrelationship. This is an important point here, that we should not let the brain control us. It should be our I which should be controlling us. I should stay outside the brain, that whatever the activity of the brain is, we should be aware of it. Becoming apprised of various stages of acquiring guidance of the Quran and become able to judge others and their stages of development. This helps to keep unnecessary expectations and hopes in check, thus saving time and effort. There is no point in hoping for someone to change if there are no signs before us in the light of the Quran. So we should always keep it in mind that the law of requital says, La ikraha fit deen. So we can't force people on this path. So if people want to benefit themselves, fine. If they don't want to, that is fine. So we are not here to to force people to come to this path. Nobody forced me to come to this path. So this is the bottom line. We should keep it in mind. Achieve complete conviction that the path of the Quran is al-haq, and there is no shortcut, i.e. no allowance for shirk. That we cannot contaminate this, this message. This message is absolutely pristine, precise, and pure. And it must stay pure in case we want to get benefit out of it. Joining those who have also acquired this conviction and work together with high focus and intensity within the Quranic guidance. It helps understand the significance of the concept of Allah and the divine attributes. Law of Requital is the key to the understanding the manifestation of all divine attributes by the human self. Now, last is some of the barriers which we might know. We can relate it to ourselves as well, that before we came to this direction, what were the barriers which were preventing us to come to the Quran? First is the assumption that the life ends with death, not accepting the existence of a nafs which can survive our physical death. This is the central point of the law of requital, that whatever we are doing, it has consequences. If we have managed to create and develop that self which has conviction of the law of requital and seeing the evidence of it, then our self will be quite different from those who do not go through this process. Desire to rule others. There can be many reasons for this. For example, being part of a powerful elite, becoming rich, acquiring power by any means, part of a powerful nation, part of a higher caste. So if there is a desire to rule others, then I'm afraid law of requital will not be able to accept it, because then we are not aware of the consequences of ruling others. Do not wish to have any limits placed on own choices, because people want to do whatever they want and they don't want to impose any limits. They don't want their desires to be curtailed. So they are not looking for law of requital, because if they are aware of fire, they will never put their finger into the fire. Greed and accumulated wealth create such a psyche that its success becomes associated with these possessions. It's a very high risk strategy which people follow. And this destroys the self. Doesn't matter how much religious they may be. This will destroy the psyche. There will be nothing in the hereafter. And we have to go against it. Does not think that the revival of the physical body can take place. There are plenty of verses in the Quran which point to that. That people think that if my brain is dead, I'm dead. They do not recognize that their self is non-physical. Done so many evil deeds that now fear sets in of own death. This is in relation to Jews. The Quran says that they want to have 1,000 years of life because of the fear of what they have done in this life and its consequences. Do not like the pure Quran and straightforward guidance. That is the one. Quran has also said in one of the verses, Allah said that it is not that they don't like you, it is the Quran they don't like. It is Allah they don't like. Inherited belief systems conforming with the majority. Now, belief systems, once they get into our brains, it's very difficult to get rid of them. They become entrenched over there. And one of the manifestation of that is when somebody dies, we still continue writing down Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, which is totally against the Quran. Do not like own accountability. Human beings want to avoid their own accountability. They will give lectures of accountability of others. They will say politicians are corrupt, so-and-so is corrupt, so-and-so is doing this. But once it comes to their own accountability, they don't want to talk about it. Do not wish to solve the problems of yatim and miskeen. In fact, many of them don't even see yatim and miskeen around them. They simply do not see them as human beings. Exploitation of others prevents to come to this path, as benefits associated with this exploitation appear to lose if a fair society emerges. Most of the people who are beneficiaries of a wrong system, they don't want to change that system because their own benefits they think will disappear, not realizing that far better society will emerge. This continuous state of grief and fear, they will get rid of it. And they simply cannot imagine a life without khawf and huzn. We may come across people who know the Quran well and may even have obtained degrees, but still not have the Quranic Iman and never talk about the law of requital. So law of requital is an excellent criteria to judge how good somebody has an understanding of the Quran. To conclude, the law of cause and effect functions in human physical life, while the law of requital operates in the life of the human self. Its functioning is in relation to human choice and intent, and its purpose is to facilitate the purpose of the human creation in this world and to help us to create a new self capable of progressing in the hereafter. Since we all retain our choice and intent in the next life, hence the law of requital will operate in the next life as well. Now, I put in this sentence because the law of requital will be there, but it will, because by using this law of requital over here, we have started making right choices and we know the consequences of it and we have benefited from it. So we would like this law to stay in the next life. The higher awareness of the law of requital gives us the opportunity to take advantage of its working and use it to optimize our efforts, firstly, to acquire a Quranic self, and secondly, to use it to become trained for the establishment of the system of Deen. And the last one is increasing our grasp of the law of requital leads to a higher understanding of the Quran, which in turn increases our conviction in the solutions which are presented by Allah for those problems which a non-Quranic human intellect will always create in the world. A world free from fear and grief can only be created by those whose selves fully understand the law of requital and are strengthened by the Quranic values, who manifest the divine attributes in solving the problems created by human intellect. So we should keep it in mind that law of requital is a great tool in our hand to understand and to be aware of it, all the problems which are around in our world. And in the process of this understanding, we develop our own self as well. And thanks very much for sharing this presentation. And we move on to question and answer session.